everyone, and welcome back to Barker-Stargazer's YouTube channel. We are here for it, the next installment of AI to reality. I am taking this image here and we're going to see how far we get. Now there'll probably be a finished product on the thumbnail, so you guys at the moment know more than I do. I am actually about halfway through this at the time of recording this opening, and I can honestly tell you this is killing me. So I already know I've done one quick video in between because this one wasn't ready, so fingers crossed it will get up this week. Okay, I'm going to bring you in now at the sketch at the beginning of the design process. If you've watched my videos before, you know I like to draw out what I want to make. Even though I've got this AI image, I do prefer to have my own image. It gives me a feel of how things work. Right, so a lot of this dragon, I can see the problems being with it being gravity. It's just going to be an endless fight to get this dragon to be able to have any sort of upward structure at all. I am having a bit of difficulty matching yarn as well, but I'm going to explain what I'm doing with that in a second. Colours I'm using for these dragons, I have got 4 different colours that I will be mixing and matching together throughout the pan. We have a blue, a lighter blue, a white, and a lilac purple. If I need a pure purple, I'm going to double up the purple. If I need it to be pure white, double up the white. If I need it all to be a very light blue, I'm just going to double up the light blue, and so forth. The main body of the dragon, I am going to put together these 2 shades of blue. On the dragon's leg, where I need purple, I'm going to put the very light blue and the purple together. For the spines along the back of the dragon, I'll be putting 2 purples together. That's what I'm going to do because I can't get an exact colour match with the yarn at the moment. I've started the snout with a chain row and then started working around this chain to give, well, not a circle shape, more of a rectangular shape. To get this indent, I'm using a slip stitch in stitch 1 or 2 rows below what I'm working on. I'm just going to sort of feel that out as I go. Now, to get this lower mouth part, I'm going to try to create a tube and flatten it, starting again with a chain row. I had intended to do this one as just like a full cylinder, but with a bit of backward and forwards, I actually had to go back to starting it the same way I'd started the snout, and that seemed to work better. Okay, main part of the head, it's just a ball done in the magic circle way, standard 6 stitches increases per round until you get the size that you want, a few straight rounds, and then bring it in. The only difference here is I'm going to put indents into the head, and I'm not even going to do that with crochet stitches. I'm using thread and I'm pulling it tight, as you can see here. Now this is for the eyes, because as you can see on the image, the eyes are, well, I wouldn't say they're crochet on the image, but it's definitely something different. So I've decided to go with a separate eye altogether. I have still used a toy eye. So you can see here where I've started the eye, I've put the toy eye in. Then I have done the iris and then the whites of the eye. The eye itself is not a full circle, it's a semicircle. That way it can fit in. And then it's onto the edging around the eye. Now, as this is so much chunkier looking, I've decided to actually quadruple my yarn. So it's got, instead of me working, well, here I'm already working with 2 strands held together, I'd be holding 8 strands together. If I only had 1 strand of yarn, it would be 4 strands of yarn. Do you get what I mean? I hope so. So that means I've also had to go up in crochet hook sizes. And I've simply just done a chain and then worked back with 1 row of double crochets. That's single crochet if you're US terminology. And this will just be sewn around the eye later. Yarns, again, are pretty simple. And I tend to find this a lot with these AI crochet images, that the pieces aren't really that difficult to make. It's just trying to figure it all out and put it all together. So I've actually started with a magic circle and only 4 stitches. Everything is worked on the round, and the curves and bends have been created by stacking increases or decreases as I've gone along, and that gives you some control over the shaping. Right, onto the neck, which I've started with a chain that has been put into a ring, not starting with a magic ring. I've stacked all of the increases towards the front of the neck, as the dragon has this like really puffed up chest, which will have a white piece on it separately. I'm just going to work on the background colour for now. And I've continued just stacking the increases on the front until I needed to start to curve the back. So I want to keep the entire dragon's main body in one full piece, give it a very serpenty look. So I've decided, instead of doing a separate neck piece, separate body piece and separate tail piece, for it all to flow together. So when we've got to the curve of the back, I've started alternating rounds with increases at the front and the back, depending on where I want the curve to go. So like if you have loads of increases stacked on one side of a 3-dimensional piece, that piece will become larger and will cause a curve to start forming in an almost like a bump. Now, if you do the opposite and stack decreases, you'll get a dent and more of a dramatic pinch sort of effect. There are proper names for that, like concave and convex, and I can't remember which way that goes around, but I might put some illustrations up to explain myself more. Also, to get more of a bend going, I also threw some front loops only stitches in, just to really get that curve. There were some rows that had to curve but had to maintain the same number of stitches, so that meant having equal amounts of decreases and increases to them. That's pretty basic maths, you know. If you take away 3, you've got to add 3. So if I have 3 decreases, I've got to have 3 increases on the opposite side, and that keeps your rows and rounds all of the same size, but you can still create shape with them. There is a bit of a negative with having the neck, body and tail all in one piece is that it is actually leaning away from the AI image itself. So you can see here on the body, the rows are very vertical. So they run from top to bottom. Now, as you can see, as I've took the curve on my pieces have started to go at an angle. This means these straight purple rows, rounds even, that are on the body here, they're not going to be possible because they are just going to go off at an angle, but I am going to make sure to put them on the legs. Like I said earlier, yes, I could have made this in 3 separate pieces, but I think the dragon would have lost some of the serpent feel to it that way. So I do prefer keeping the body this way. And you have to keep in mind that I will publish these patterns as well. So I do want to have something of me in it, not just be a carbon copy of the actual image. The dragon's spine. This is a point that I've realised that this pattern I am writing right now is probably going to be the first one I've ever released that's going to require a difficulty rating. So, what I've started the spine here with is a foundationless half treble crochet line. So that would be a half double foundationless crochet line for US followers. This is quite an advanced stitch. It actually completely skips making a foundation chain first. But as you can see, it does give the look of the spine at the side that we do need. I've decided that next week's video, or maybe the week after that, is going to be a video where I explain in more detail these more complicated stitches. I'm not entirely sure which ones I'll do, but I'll definitely include stitches that have appeared in this video. Now, to get the spikes on top of the spine, which in the picture are not crocheted at all, I actually had to do it in 2 separate pieces. So taking this foundationless stitch line, I don't even know if you can call it a chain at this point, I've first took the colour I'm going to use for the smaller spine bumps that are in the deep purple. And I am doing 3 slip stitches followed by a half treble, repeating that all along the middle of this chain. Now I'm just going to call it a chain, it's going to be easier. And then I've took that off. Now, to get the center spine spikes, should I say, I didn't want the yarn to show on the sides. So that's meant that what I've had to do is actually physically bring the thread up the crochet piece and then back down the crochet piece so all the work is hidden. I am really going to have to work on this a few times to figure out how best I'm going to describe how to create this stitch, because even when I've come up to start a new spike, I haven't just done a chain, I've had to loop around my hook and start stitches in a slightly different way. So like I said, this is where the complexity of the pattern is actually going to come in. Not just for anyone following it, but for me writing it. But anyway, I'm quite happy with how this spine is, and so that runs from the base of the neck all the way down to the bottom of the tail. And as for the tail, it's just going to be left plain because we can't see anywhere on the picture that shows us what the tail would actually look like. The legs. Right, so I've started with the legs by simply making all of the claws for the, well, toes of the dragon. And as they're a little varied on the AI image about how many per foot, I've personally decided to put 3 toes on the front legs and 4 toes on the back legs. Now, I haven't recorded any of me making the claws because they are just very simply 3 chains into a magic ring worked on the round. There's nothing complex there, there's nothing exciting there. Right, moving on to the front leg. I'm definitely going to get the colour changes in that are on the image for this leg. I do feel I can do it here. First thing I'm going to do is create the main pad of the foot by joining all of these claws up with my first row in the blue and continuing up the leg. Shaping and turning has been achieved the same way I did with the horns on the head by clustering or stacking increases and decreases in places where I want the leg to bend in for the decreases and areas where I want the leg to bow out for the increases. I think I repeated myself twice there. Never mind. So I have done the colour change just by switching out my dark blue for the purple, keeping with my light blue. I've also decided that these front legs do need some additional support, so here I have cut some cake dowels and placed them inside. That tends to be my go-to now for structure within crochet pieces. The back leg I decided to make in 2 separate pieces. Well, technically you can say 5 separate pieces because first each of the 4 toes was built up into these long cone shapes, and then I created the bulk of the back leg, which I guess is meant to be sort of like a hip joint curled in on itself. And I left this open flap bit on the bottom for the toes to sit on, and it kind of looks like a nautilus. Maybe I should make a nautilus next. That might be nice. Another idea for the jar, I guess. The jar which now even my husband is insisting I do more projects from. Now for our dragon's chest plate. So, as I did with the ring around the eyes, I have quadrupled my yarn, which means if I was using standard Aran weight yarn, I would be now working with 4 strands, but as I always take 2 strands of double knit weight yarn and put them together, I'm using 8 strands. Now I've played around with this chest plate quite a bit, and I am actually pleasantly surprised that without too much difficulty, using front post only treble stitches, that's double stitches US terms, I've been able to create the ridge effect that I was looking for. Yes, it is not exact to the AI image, but this is what I could create in the most easiest way. I could create these viney swirly patterns by doing separate chain stitches, but I think this is what you can achieve with crochet, so I am going to leave it at this. Onto the wings. Now, I really thought I was near the end of this when it came to the wings, but they have required a lot of work. So I've started off with this back piece, just in the light blue. So it looks like kind of like a weird speech bubble. And then using pretty much the same pattern, but in a different direction to try and add stability, I created the inner part, leaving off this stem. Now, when it's come to the vein detailing and the edging of the wings, I've gone back to the foundationless stitch rows. The outside row here has actually been a foundationless triple row, so that's foundationless double if you're US. And the inner veins of the wings are foundationless double crochets UK, single crochets US. And for the outer part of the wing, I've decided to put a wooden dowel in, simply because my cake dowels will be too wide for this. So I felt the wood was a better option. And then for the veins of the wings itself, I've stitched through the foundationless chains and around wire just to try and add a bit more stability to these wings. But I'm very cautious about them being too heavy because this dragon is already fighting gravity. I think this has been the biggest challenge with this AI image to get it into the real world, is the fact that it is defying gravity. The head is too heavy for the body, the feet can't support it, and the wings just can't either. And here we are at the assembly process. There's been quite a bit for this dragon, I'm not going to lie, and there have been some additional pieces that have been thrown in as well, like these little chains on the knees and on the wing edges to create the little flowers and the little swirls. There's also been this circle side of the back leg made, where I did one row in the front loops only and then another row in the back loops only, just to get that ridge effect. Just been little add-on bits that I've been so focused on the larger pieces of the dragon that I didn't really see until it was time to start assembling. These hair pieces on the top of the dragon, they're just basic tubes. To be honest, they're all different sizes, all different lengths. Some of them were started with 3 stitches in a magic circle, some were started with 5, some were started with 4. And it was just a way to get the variety I needed. And to be honest, I was really, really getting fatigued at this point. So I didn't want to focus too much on having exact pieces here. And I just used whatever colours I picked up and put together. The front legs, I have actually ended up securing them to the body much more than I first intended to. I first intended to only attach them using the stitches left at the open ends of the legs. I've actually put more stitches in than that down the body to help secure. Well, not so much secure the legs to the dragon, but try and secure the dragon more in its own stability. The wings. They've ended up having to be stitched to the horns themselves to give the right final image, and they are too heavy. They are simply too heavy, despite me trying desperately to make them light. Okay, I'm going to give these black details within the eyes a go. So I first tried it with just black thread and I wasn't happy with the outcome. So I did a quick chain stitch in black and attached that to the inside as well. This was better, however, I don't like the way it looks, so I'm going to unpick it. Oh my gosh, look at her! Oh my god, she is so sweet, and that's her name. Her name is Sweetness. Oh, she does have a little difficulty standing. I'll try and film that separately because there's no way I can get the angle here. Oh, you're so beautiful. Oh, with your little big eyes. You should make them into glasses, like me, to match. So legs are joined completely along the side of the body here. I'm not sure if that got on camera. It was just the only way I could get her to really even stand at all, but it's more like she sort of slumps down on herself than she actually stands. But she's beautiful. Okay, next AI to reality. I'm actually not going to put a poll up. I'm going to do a few smaller projects for now, and then I will bring you guys in to vote for another big project like this one. And as of filming, parts of the pattern have actually been checked. So I'm going to hopefully be able to get this pattern out within the next couple of months. Because I have decided that the seahorse needs to be the next pattern release because it is getting quite a few likes at the moment. So I'm gonna go with the flow. And I will see you guys next week for another video. Bye YouTube.